later on anyway. All right. So I guess thank you, Nick. Let's start. So today's topic is Microsoft's DAP to GDAP change. And we kind of like wanted to do this webinar, like Stephanie and I, to kind of like really give you guys an overview of what is DAP, what is GDAP, why should I care, why does it matter to me, why does it matter to my end clients, and what do I actually need to do. So I guess like let's start it and let's get started. And a quick intro, I guess, to who is attending, or I guess like presenting today. And I think it's you, Raymond. I can hear some background noises. Like either if you could mute yourself. Thank you. Perfect. So I guess like today, Stephanie and I are going to present a few slides talking about what GDAP is, why Sherweb requires it, why it should matter to you. And in the chat, if you have any question, we have Alex, which you just met, who was talking about chat, GPT, James, and also Nick, and also Randa. So feel free, I guess, like either listening or if you have any question, either to raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we have a few people answering and helping. And I guess like general housekeeping rules, such as that, we already started the recording. We'll share the presentation. And I guess like Nick, before we start with the topic, do you want to throw out your poll question, which was very interesting? Because I think we had a poll question, just because we were very curious, I guess. If any of you who are, I guess, like attending this call now, if you have already started migrating your end clients from DAP to GDAP. I guess like I'm very curious about the result, because my, I guess, assumption would be probably not so many, but I guess let's see what the result is. I'll give maybe anyone 15 seconds or so, or 20 seconds to reply. All right. So I guess 16 responses so far, and we have 80% said no, and 20% said yes. So I guess it's more actually than I expected. So I guess like really, really good. Microsoft would be very proud of the, I guess, 20% who have already started migrating their clients to GDAP, because we all kind of like know that it has a valid reason why we should do it. All right, very interesting. So what we're going to talk about today, we have a few topics to share. So the first one I would say is just in general, because maybe if you guys don't know exactly what is GDAP, what does it stand for, what does it entail, why should I transition from DAP to GDAP? We kind of like want to cover a little bit more technical, kind of like how it works, and also to share some Microsoft timelines with an additional comment on the timeline provided by Microsoft. Then we're going to kind of like cover the topic why we also are going to request GDAP from your end clients, kind of like give you the reasons why we require those and what permissions probably will be asking for, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of like understand as a partner why you probably will see something coming from Sherweb as well. And then we kind of like wanted to talk about the partner impact, right? You as a partner, because we figured out that there are probably different scenarios depending on how you manage your end client, because I guess some maybe manage the end client a lot, kind of like supporting them, assigning licenses, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you're a partner who is kind of like more hands-off and you just provide the licenses and the end client manages themselves. I just heard someone. Yeah, so we kind of like wanted to go over that and like really kind of like show you step by step, kind of like here are the recommended steps by Microsoft, depending on what kind of like use case you're in, what you should do or what you shouldn't do, or I guess like what in general is the recommendation. So that's roughly the overview. As I mentioned, always feel free if you have a question to put it in the chat, but we also have a Q&A kind of like slot in the end. If you have any questions you want to, I guess, like ask verbally, we can also do that. Awesome. So I guess with that, let's start with, I guess, more general information. What is GDAP? And I think I start before Stephanie takes over. So GDAP stands for Granular Delegated Admin Privileges. So I guess you kind of like can figure out that DAP, what we currently have and what we had in the past, is delegated admin privileges. So Microsoft announced, I think, roughly last year, that they're introducing GDAP now to maximize, I guess, like our, and also their security ecosystem, right? So now partners and also distributors can provide more granular and time-bound access to the customer workloads than with the current delegated admin privileges. Because if you remember with DAP, it was kind of like you got, I guess, like access to the customer and tenant kind of like forever with, I guess, like how many permissions and roles and whatever you wanted to have. And I guess like we all are aware of all the security frauds and I guess like all the things which have happened in the past weeks and months. And we all, I think, agree that security is probably one of the most important concern for us, for you, for your end client. So it kind of like makes sense that Microsoft is kind of like limiting this, I guess, like global admin access forever on end client tenants. So it definitely makes sense for them to kind of like go a little bit further and have this more granular and also time-bound access. And I guess like why they do that is to ensure that everything is aligned to the zero trust alignment principles in the channel, which I think we all can agree on that it definitely makes sense. So that's what GDAP stands for. And I guess like it kind of like goes hand in hand why you should transition from DAP to GDAP. So the first one is for sure that now you have like a delegated access model, because if you have different, I guess, like access models and roles and also, I guess, like different hierarchies and time bounds, it reduces the risk, right? The security risk and impact on your customers. Instead of giving, just to give like I guess, an example, you give all of your employees in your company, I don't know, global admin to your end clients forever. For sure, that's kind of like a way higher security risk instead of having more time-bound things and I guess it's different security groups and certain people having certain accesses on your end client because of whatever they need to do. Then the second thing, which kind of like goes hand in hand as well, is to control, I guess, like also and restrict the partner access so employees can manage customer service and environment. Kind of like same thing here, right? Instead of giving everyone global admin access to everything, it's more like, why do you need to have certain permissions and roles to access end clients' tenants? And kind of like, I guess, like managing this ownership and control. The third one is kind of like removing standing or perpetual global admin access to customer tenants. Kind of like what I said back in the days with DAP, it was like just you have access, you can keep it forever. And then the last one is the higher protection for access to customer data, which is kind of like, I guess all of those four reasons are definitely very, very, very valid reasons why you should transition from DAP to, I guess, like to the more granular access roles. So I would say that's it for, I guess, like why you should transition. And I guess like maybe this picture helps explain GDAP a little bit better, because I mean, like it's a lot of information if you've never heard of GDAP. So we kind of like try to break this a little bit down, I guess, like to be a little bit easier to understand. So how GDAP works, as you can see in the screenshot, which was provided, for example, from Microsoft in the guide, is that you as a partner, I guess like your employees or maybe you yourself, you have your user, right? And you can see that you, in this example, have like two different customer tenants where you need to do certain, I guess, like different things. So now with GDAP, what you can see here is that you can request different roles. So let's say in the first customer tenant, you need the Exchange Online admin role, you need to do something with SharePoint Online and something with Intune. So in order to now, I guess, like do this with GDAP, you would need to ask for those permissions. And you can also see that you need this, for example, just for 6 months because you're currently doing some project with them. So you would, I guess, like request a GDAP relationship with those different roles for 6 months. But then maybe for a different topic, or I guess like a different kind of like use case, you only need, what was it, the global reader and the help desk admin for 2 months. So you can see kind of like understanding that it's like really going way granular compared to how it was before, because now you can really, and the end client can also understand, right? Like, okay, you need access for this specific tenant for so many weeks or months because of this reason, I can approve. And then after that, it kind of like ends. So I think it's kind of like hopefully explaining it a little bit better, I guess, like how it really works within different customer tenants, and I guess like what you can ask and what you need to ask for. So yeah, GDAP provides, I guess, like restriction of access at the customer, partner tenant, partner user, and also workload, which I guess makes sense because it's more granular, as the name refers to. And we will go a little bit more into depth as well later in, I guess, like the partner use cases, kind of like what you need to do exactly and how it looks like the different steps. But I think that was kind of like just our high-level summary of like how GDAP works. And then I guess like lastly on my end, you can see that I guess like we crossed this out. So we're still waiting for the official announcement from Microsoft, which I think we were told is going to be tomorrow. But I guess like I I will make a little bit fun of Microsoft, even though it's on recording, but we all know Microsoft's way of working. So they did have some deadlines, right? They said, well, starting from January 17th, Microsoft will stop creating DAP relationships, and with new customers and resellers, only GDAP will be required. And also Microsoft said January 17th that they will start removing inactive DAP relationships. That has been postponed, going to be communicated tomorrow. We don't know yet when it will be postponed to, but Microsoft said that they will give at least 60 days notice of, I guess, like in advance. So as soon as we have a deadline there, we'll definitely communicate this to you guys so you know and are aware. And also, I guess, like we are aware as well on our end. And I guess like the second deadline Microsoft had, which they also postponed or will postpone tomorrow, is that they have a bulk migration tool, which is kind of like for you and for us also to use in order to migrate all existing DAP connections to GDAP. Without customer consent, which is, I think, very important, because usually if you ask GDAP, your end client needs to accept it. So I think there was, I guess, like some discussion internally when Microsoft announced it with different distributors, different partners, and everyone was like, this is so much work if we would need to ask for consent for every single existing DAP connection, right? So Microsoft was, well, yeah, I guess we understand your concern. So that's why they built this bulk migration tool in order to migrate all existing ones without asking for customer consent. But yeah, so that's, they kind of like had a deadline that they will only provide it up until March 1st, but they will postpone this as well. And then the last thing Microsoft had also announced for, I guess like March 1st, is that they will begin to transition remaining active DAP relationships to GDAP with, I guess, like these privileged kind of like roles in order, I guess, like to get rid of DAP. So all those, I guess, like 4 bullet points will still come, but not with those deadlines. So at least I guess Microsoft is giving everyone a little bit more time to figure this out, I guess for them internally to figure this out, because I'm pretty sure I'm not saying anything new. Like we all had like so much, I guess, like going on with NCE, with the legacy incentives ending on December 31st, with any price increases and new SKUs, NCE in general. So I would have been honestly surprised if Microsoft wouldn't have pushed it, right? I don't think it was a I guess good idea to put it on January 17th when half of the people are out of the office over the holidays. So I guess that's why I makes sense for Microsoft to push it. So I guess, like, as I said, as soon as we have any dates on this one, when I guess like the new deadlines are being announced, we'll definitely communicate this as well. But that's kind of like for Microsoft's timeline. And I guess over to Stephanie on, I guess, like what we require for your end clients.
Yes, thank you. So we wanted to present to you how is Sherweb using GDAP so that you understand what's going to happen for yourself in Cumulus and for your end clients. So first of all, GDAP, we as Sherweb, we will request access to your end clients to be able to continue providing some services that you are currently having. So to ensure that there's no disruptions in the services that we provide to you and to your end clients. So those come under 4 different umbrellas. So we have the provisioning the licenses, assigning the licenses directly from Cumulus that requires a GDAP consent. There's also providing customer support. So if we want to be able to do troubleshooting and help your end client with opening support cases, we need certain accesses for that. And there's also the sending the data for PSA integrations. So all of those different services that we provide to you, to your end clients, we will request a GDAP access. So just to be clear, the GDAP access is requested at the end client, but going through you as the partner of record. So how will this look like? First of all, I want to say that in the big picture of things, nothing will really change in Cumulus. It's going to be pretty much business as usual. There's just a few different tweaks that you will notice. So when you will be, once we moved into the GDAP world, for new organizations that you will be adding into your Cumulus, you will see that the email notification that you receive will be slightly tweaked. So now we will have a portion, you can see on top here, that there's a click here button to accept the GDAP request. So it's going to be right within the same email that we send in your login credentials. So the email that you're familiar already receiving, there's just going to be this added button. And when you click on this, it brings you directly to the page where it's needed to click on the approve the request. So it is one more click, but that's what the granularity of GDAP requires. So we're trying to make it as frictionless as possible, but that will be the main change for you within the Cumulus and email notifications that we send.
Yep, and I guess like also to add on that, something we're working on our, and I guess like on our side as well, is to provide you guys also with some kind of like GDAP guide, because we want to kind of like highlight which certain roles we will be requesting and kind of like why are we requesting it for. So kind of like the slide before, right, where Stephanie was talking about, hey, Sherweb also requires GDAP because of whatever reason. Here are the specific roles we're requesting and why we request it. So kind of like for you to understand exactly what we're asking for, and also I guess like the duration. So I guess like that's hopefully coming soon. We're working on that.
Yeah, and this guide will be helpful if ever you have an end customer asking questions, because we know that some of them have higher security protocols. So they will want to know why you're asking this and how is it used. So we will provide you that information.
I guess it's me again.
Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. So I guess like what I mentioned in the beginning in the agenda, so we have different kind of like use cases we thought of, which might be interesting for you to understand. So kind of like two partner scenarios, right? So the first one is kind of like, hey, you only provision the license, you don't manage or support the end client. It's really just like, I guess like, yeah, provisioning the license and then kind of like hands off. That's maybe partner one. Maybe that's you. If that doesn't apply to you, maybe you're partner two in the scenario too. So you manage your end clients, you support your end clients, you assign licenses. So you kind of like have a more hands-on approach. So we kind of like thought, let's go over those both different scenarios and what GDAP would mean for you and what you probably would need to do or what you don't need to do. So kind of like going over this one. Yeah, so I guess I do want to start with the easier one, Steph.
Yeah, sure. So for the scenario one, where you only provision licenses, in really short, you don't necessarily need to take any action because you don't need to manage assigning licenses or you don't provide support. It means you don't really need any special access that GDAP provides you. So if you can go the route of no action required, you let Microsoft manage it for you. Microsoft, like Tram mentioned earlier, will be removing inactive DAPs, and now the date to be determined, but it will be done automatically. Microsoft will move you to the least privileged access on GDAP. So all in all, things will happen on its own. Microsoft will make sure that you are part of the secured ecosystem, so you don't need to do anything. But Microsoft still recommends that you do take action because you don't know when Microsoft will be removing those accesses and it presents a security risk. So we do recommend that you take ownership and go into your partner center and do an audit of your current DAP relationships. Just double check to make sure that you do in fact don't need any accesses, and do the removal of DAP just to prevent any possible breach to be 100% secure. And maybe during that audit process, you will notice that you remember, oh, for this one particular client, we have a special relationship. We do manage something for them and we'll need a GDAP. So it's a good exercise to go over.
And I guess like the last recommendation also, which in general makes sense, right? Like as Stephanie mentioned, if you have any cases where you actually do need GDAP also moving forward in the future, it's kind of like upon request. So it makes sense. Like usually if you don't manage them, you don't have anything. But if you need something, then you kind of like would just request a GDAP relationship with a time bound, I guess, like access and with your roles which you require. Awesome. So I think that was the first scenario, which was a little bit shorter. So let's go over the second scenario, right? Like if you're a partner and you do a little bit more than just provisioning the licenses, and you actually manage, support, and manage and support end clients and assign licenses, what do you need to do? Oh, I guess should you do? Microsoft kind of like provides a very kind of, I would say, a very detailed guide, which we also share, I guess, like in the end, where they kind of like say, here are the different steps which you kind of like should do as a partner if you need and require GDAP. And it's kind of like, first, very similar, audit any existing DAP connections and relationships you have, like kind of like, hey, what I guess, like, what are your users, your employees doing in your end clients, tenants? What roles do they have? How often do they access this? Things like that. Then second, remove any inactive DAP relationships and connections, because I guess anything which is inactive, theoretically, I guess means that you don't actually need it because it is inactive, right? Then following that, to kind of like start planning for your DAP to GDAP transition, kind of like thinking about which security groups do I need, which I guess GDAP roles and permissions do I need, for how long do I probably need it for, and who should, I guess, like access the end client with whatever reason. And then the last 2 points would be like, one, transition to GDAP, and then disable DAP as soon as it's done. And we are going to cover every single one of those like step by step. So hopefully it will help you guys a little bit more as well. So let's start with the first one, which I just mentioned, like audit existing DAP connections. So here is really kind of like, if you go into the Microsoft Admin Center and Partner Center, there should be a section which you can see here highlighted in the screenshot, where it shows you all current, I guess, like administrative relationships you have. So you kind of like really can see all details on each customer's DAP connection, and I guess like the activity associated to it. So you have a very nice, I guess, like overview of which customer is it, how many of your own, I guess, like users are signed in, kind of like really seeing who has signed it into the customer tenant in the last 30 days. You can see, I guess, like the number of times the partner users have signed in. So kind of like how often have your, I guess, like employees or you logged into your customer tenant in the last 30 days. And also, which I think is very interesting because it is the highest, I guess, like role and permission you can have, the percentage of global admin sign-ins. So I guess generally speaking, the lower the global admin sign-ins, the better, because global admin in general is like the highest permission you can have, right? So it gives you a really, really nice overview of, I guess, like your current status as is. And kind of like giving you the chance to determine how your users within your organization as a partner are accessing customer tenants through DAP using this tool. So I think that's like really a good starting point for you to understand where you currently are and doing some kind of audit.
Okay, now to remove inactive DAP connections, it's in the same page, so we haven't moved. And you just need to basically identify who you want to remove. So identify your customers, you have your full customer list. Let's say you were scenario 1, where you don't need to keep any DAP relationship. You could select the box here to select all. Otherwise, you would select the individual accounts that you want to remove the DAP relationship. Then once you are ready you went through your entire list, you would click on the disable DAP button. And then you would get this message here, basically confirming that you are about to remove DAP. Please make sure that you go through the list here. It's going to list all of the customers you just selected. There is a scroll bar, so make sure you scroll all the way down so that you don't remove a DAP relationship that you did not intend to remove. Otherwise, that means you would not be able to use the migration tool. If that was your plan, you would need to request a GDAP relationship on its own. So just be mindful of this. Also, there is this checkbox to select. Basically, you just need to ensure that you mention to your customers that you are removing the DAP relationship. There used to be an email notification that was automatically sent, but Microsoft removed that feature in the last few months. So there's no automatic notification. So it's up to you to inform your end clients that you're going through this and it's happening. And then when you're ready, you would click on disable, and this will remove the DAP permission. It can take a few minutes for the change to actually reflect, so that you're no longer able to use your DAP global admin permissions, but it will happen quite fast. So just keep that in mind, that it's really, there's no turning back on removing the DAP. So that's why reviewing the list is very important before you click on that final button. Because once you click on it, you no longer have access to your customer online services. Your administrative privilege is gone. So it is a full stop on how you could access it. So just be mindful of that. One thing that it will not affect is if you have current role-based access roles on subscription and PECs. So that's not managed by DAP, so that's not touched.
And then I guess like for start planning, so I guess like if you have done the audit and if you have removed inactive DAP relationships if required, kind of like what we just said, is like, now, okay, let's plan for what is actually required now on your end as a partner on GDAP. So I guess like it's kind of like, I guess like doing the audit internally within your teams and your users and your activities to kind of like understand what you usually do in custom attendance. So questions you should ask, I guess, either yourselves or your teams is, which users of us should actually have access to custom attendance, right? And what activities do those users perform in those tenants? Is it actually, I don't know, doing support related things, doing troubleshooting, assigning licenses, things like that. And also, I guess like the last question you should also discuss within your teams would be like, how often do they have to do those activities? Are we talking things about once in a year, every day, something in between? So because GDAP is kind of like very granular and also time bound features, it kind of like really makes sense to understand, I guess, like what you actually do in custom attendance. And then, and generally speaking, which I think definitely makes sense, that Microsoft recommends that you should only, I guess, grant your users least privileged roles based on the tasks that they have to carry out. So for sure, you have to provide them, and I guess like accept roles or provide roles which they need in order to do the task. But you shouldn't do, like, just to give an example, just give everyone global admin, because that would be like way too much more, I guess, like roles and permission than what they actually do, which I guess makes sense. And Microsoft has also provided a very nice overview. So all the GDAP roles, which they are, and I guess like what they can do in order to kind of like figure out what roles you really need. So as I said, right, we'll share this presentation with you. So yeah, we'll have this link as well to kind of like go over that. So yeah, so I guess that's for planning. You're mute.
Thank you. So to do the transition to GDAP then, bear in mind that this is if you're not using the migration tool, if you're just going at requesting a specific relationship. So you would need to be within your partner center. You need to be an admin agent within the partner center to be able to go into this specific area. And you would just need to click on the menu, select customers, and on the customer page, then select the particular customer that you want to create the relationship with. When you're in there, you would click on the admin relationship in here. And then you have this request admin relationship button that is where you click to create the GDAP request, basically. So bear in mind that your request name needs to be unique, and it's also visible to the customer in their Microsoft Admin Center. So just FYI, to make sure that it's a name that's not gibberish that the client can understand. Also, you will have to determine the duration in days, like Tram was explaining, based on your scenario, how long this relationship needs to be implemented for. And after the expiration, it means that you will no longer have access to whatever roles you had requested into that request. You will be able to create another request with different roles based on needs whenever that expiration happens. Once you send the request, an email is sent to your customer, and they see the roles that you have requested and for which duration you've requested. And in that email, they have a link to click to get into the page that I showed previously, where they can approve the GDAP request.
Yeah. And it's so good that you spoke so much about expiration, because I think it's one thing I forgot to mention when talking about GDAP in general. One of the changes which GDAP now also introduces, that it has a max time bound. So the maximum, I guess, duration you can ask for GDAP is 2 years. So you can't ask for anything more than 2 years. So 2 years is kind of like the limit Microsoft had announced with GDAP. Thanks for triggering that. All right. And then I guess the next slide, kind of like if you have done all of those steps, I guess like auditing DAP, removing inactive, then planning your transition, and then I guess like getting anyone or everyone who you need to have on GDAP. I guess like the last step would be to disable, I guess, like any remaining DAP which you have, because now we have GDAP, right? So we kind of like summarize it here, like, hey, after you have been granted GDAP by your customer and everything is working, and you can kind of like confirm that everything is working as it should, you should disable your existing DAP connections. So it's kind of like the same steps which we have shown earlier, like how you remove inactive DAP relationships. So same, I guess, like UI, same place, and then just remove the, I guess, like rest of your DAP relationships, and then you're kind of like done. So that was kind of like the flow, I guess, what you as a partner probably will need to do or should do if you have, I guess, like those different use cases which we have highlighted before. I guess, yeah, I think that was everything what we wanted to mention. So I guess quick and efficient. I know that it was a lot, I guess, like of technical depth and topics. So any questions, comments, something we can clarify, help with, either in the chat or verbally? I guess if everyone is quiet, it's either that we, I guess, like overruled you with, I don't know, very dry topics, or you guys are all good. I can see a question from Eddie in the chat. Partners are discouraged from selecting a global administrator role for GDAP invitation request. Why is this? We would like to do the approvals for our clients. If you say the Sherweb document states, you mean one of our slides?
No, it's from the GDAP guide itself from Microsoft. And what this means, and even when you do enable GDAP for your end customers, when you select the role global admin, you will get a message saying we truly, don't recommend you to get that global admin role, because it really takes the granular out of GDAP. It's really the same security risks as before, except for the expiration date, like Tram mentioned. So as Tram mentioned, do try to find which roles your partner users are performing in your end customer tenants, so that whenever you do the GDAP request, it includes those roles and those roles only. You'll see that there's a lot of extraneous roles that you wouldn't want anyway. But as long as you do that, when you create your security groups, it's actually going to be a lot easier for you to manage internally your partner center users and what tasks they perform, instead of having to trust the junior tech with the keys to the kingdom of all your end customer tenants, as things stand right now. I hope that answers the question. Yes.
I'm nodding. Perfect. I guess any other question or comment? Yes. Well, tenants still show up in the Microsoft portal the same way. I would say so, right?
The customer list will stay for the reseller relationship. It's just that right now the function to include the DAP in the reseller relationship will be moved to just the GDAP function. So when you click on customers in the partner center, the first thing that will show up is your customer list, but all those customers will be just the ones you have reseller relationships with. You will have to click on administer to see your admin relationships, which is where GDAP is. It's also shown on the guide, and it will become intuitive. It's just one click down for what you're trying to do. But if you're just trying to see all of your customers, for the partner scoring, that's going to be exactly the same way.
final round. Any other question or comment someone wants to get rid of, ask something? Because I guess if no one else has something, I guess I mentioned, there's one. I would like to hear from others who have started using GDAP. We have enrolled all of our clients with GDAP. We consistently have problems with our partner portal. Does anyone else have these? I guess that's a very good, maybe open question for, I think it was like roughly 20%, right? Who already said that they started migrating to GDAP. So I don't know if someone's open on this call to, I guess, like unmute themselves to, I guess, like share some best practices or I guess like how it's been going. On our end, I know that, maybe go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was going to say I can start the ball because I have my own partner center, so I did the transition for a few of my customers. Obviously, they're not non-paying customers, but it's still the same relationships. And I've actually found the opposite experience, that when I'm going to the SharePoint Admin Center from my security groups, from the users that only have SharePoint access, it actually loads a lot faster than prior whenever I was using it. And from what I've read on the Reddit threads on the subject as well, it has been a similar experience from partners, that when you have your roles down and you want to have that specific function to go Teams admin, Exchange admin, and so forth and so on, GDAP works a lot better, and we're not seeing the same type of timeout errors and infinite loops that we were seeing with DAP before.
Very interesting, because I guess I can share from what I've heard. I guess like in several Microsoft calls and community calls. I've heard both. I would say definitely where it went very smooth, and as kind of like Alex said, it kind of like went better and everything was fine. But we've also definitely heard, especially I guess from bigger partners or bigger distributors, that they did have like several issues, general, either with the bot migration tool, which I think Microsoft kind of like has addressed and fixed, I guess like over the weeks when it was, I guess, communicated, and also certain things which are not working. And honestly, I think that's kind of like definitely also one of the reasons why Microsoft has been pushing this deadline, right? Because there are still a few things which are not working properly, not as they are intended to. So that's why I think it's like one of the reasons why Microsoft is also pushing the deadline to kind of like give everyone a little bit more time to at least have DAP and GDAP coexist and kind of like to figure out why things are not working before they start removing.
Mm-hmm. But it is an extension of the deadline. It is not an abandonment of the project. So it will come, to quote Thanos in the Avengers, it is inevitable. So do prepare for it. And as we all know, working in this channel, putting things off at a later date, you're just inviting emergencies and fires from your end customers where you're not going to have the time to take it. So if there's any type of lull period for you right now, if you're in Canada like us and everything's frozen and there's nothing else to do outside, you can start working on those transitions. The sooner you get used to it, the less scary it gets, and you'll be ready for when those enforcements come in.
Yep. And I guess like maybe something to add, Adley, from your kind of like comment that you have problems, always feel free, right, to kind of like share it with your account manager, because I guess like they can forward it to Stephanie and I, or I guess like to our group, and we can take this information because we have a close relationship with Microsoft, right? And we're definitely in close contact in this whole, I guess, like NCE and GDAP topic. So you could take whatever feedback you have, kind of like explain it to them, escalate it if it's something urgent, or at least like just provide general feedback. Hey, this apparently doesn't work. Have you had a look at it? Is it currently already in progress of being resolved, etc., etc. So feel free, like I said, to reach out to us. But yeah, I really like your comment, Alex, because I know that one of the, I guess, main Microsoft engineers who we're in contact with, he was very hesitant when he heard about, I guess, Microsoft extending the deadline, because he was like, the sooner you have this done, the better. And especially, I guess, like, I don't know if you've been experiencing it, but we've definitely experienced it as well. There were a lot of like increased security frauds and threats, right? So it definitely makes sense to be, I guess, the earlier you are more secure, the better. So I definitely 100% agree with what you just said, Alex. It's not a fun topic, but I guess you have to do it.
I think you both did a tremendous job, and I would like to thank you both for hosting this, especially right after finding out from Microsoft that they were pushing the deadline. I know how that can, kind of be a non-starter. So thanks again.
No
and
worries.
Thanks everyone to everyone who participated as well.
Yeah, and I guess if you have any other, I guess, like upcoming question after this, I guess same as always, feel free to reach out to your account manager, to us, through, I guess, like your normal, I guess, like ways. Thank you, Francis. 2025 will be a great year. I guess with that, happy Wednesday, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your, I guess, like afternoon if you're on the eastern side, or whatever wherever you're based at. Enjoy your Wednesday. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Eddie.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.